Hello to the IOTA training forum in Skopje. My name is Christopher Meyer from Skill, and I'll be talking to you about mobile learning, some current status, examples, and development challenges. Now, first, a brief look at the agenda. I'll start out talking about the importance of mobile devices, then say something about how our understanding of mobile learning has changed over the last years. And then we'll look at two sides. We'll look at individuals learning with mobile apps, and we'll look at organizations, and in particular two cases and a development framework. You can see the agenda of that talk here also next to me, so that hopefully helps you being oriented as to where we are in our talk. Now, before I start out, who are we at Skill and what do we do? Swiss Center for Innovations in Learning. You can see our directors, Sabine Seufert and Dieter Euler. And we have three areas that we work in. We have an academy, we do research work, and we do consulting work. And all our work is focused on corporate learning, as you can see on the right, strategy and portfolio management, learning design, learning professionals, learning leadership, learning culture, and learning value management. Now, mobile learning. Mobile learning has been with us for at least a dozen years, and our understanding of what mobile learning is has shifted in this period. So initially, the focus really was on how can learning content be made available via mobile devices, starting out with PDAs some years back, and now, for example, looking at smartphones and tablets. In a later stage, the focus then shifted towards how can learning outside the classroom, informal learning, be supported, for example, by using mobile devices to record something in the field and then bring it back, for example, into the classroom for further discussion and work on that. And a third understanding, which I think is the most common today, is mobile learning is what mobile learners do. Mobile learning, current status. You can see two research results here. On the one hand side, on the left hand side, a recent study showed that about 50% of the learning professionals interviewed use mobile devices for learning. And on the other hand, you can see that only about 31% of the organizations that have been studied for this ASTD research make learning content available via mobile devices. So there's a difference here which has to do with the proliferation of mobile devices as consumer items. They are affordable for us, and many of us have such mobile devices. Let's look at the individual side of mobile learning as a start, and the importance of mobile devices. There's been a poll done on this by Time magazine together with Qualcomm, a large corporation, and for 84% of those interviewed said they couldn't go a single day without using their mobile device, and even 44% said they would rather leave their wallet at home rather than their mobile device if they could make a choice, if they had to make a choice. And here on the right, you can see my favorite kind of legwear trousers with dedicated pockets on the left for my smartphone and on the right for my reading glasses. And this gives me access anywhere, anytime, not only to email and calendar, but also to more learning-related things like reading Wikipedia articles, listening to podcasts, checking newsreaders, recent journals and journal editions or recent newsletter items, and also to participate or to check on community updates. Let's stay with my personal learning environment for the moment, which you can see on the left, where it's about learning and developing knowledge. So I engage in defining goals and doing some planning. I search and organize information and resources, and I process these resources and discuss them. And what I use are, for example, Google Alerts. I use Newsreader. I use Scoopit as a content curation service, and I'm involved in several communities. I listen to podcasts, for example, from ASTD or Chief Learning Officer. I follow webinars. I write on our weblog, post on communities, and create Office documents when I work on these things. And what is really important to me is that I have a seamless support for my activities across the devices that I have. my business notebook, my privately owned tablet with add-on keyboard, and my smartphone. So I've chosen these in particular, these two I have chosen in order to be able to have the same web browser on all my devices, to be able to use the same bookmarking and annotation service on all devices, the same newsreader on all devices, the same content curation service on all devices, and so on and so forth. So seamless support is really very important to me when it comes to my learning activities. I want to continue where I have left off, regardless of what the last device was that I worked with. Mobile learning with apps, some more on that. There's been an interesting recent study by Tanya Villas, who looked at how different people learn with mobile apps, and have 3 profiles here for you. The first case, a software developer, for him the challenge was to keep up to date on knowledge on programming languages. So what he does is, while he's commuting for 20 to 30 minutes per day, he works with Anki cards as a learning application. Another case, the director of a small enterprise pursues professional education in parallel to his day-to-day work. So he reads and annotates course content, and he uses iThoughts and iAnnotate on his iPad to do this. And the third case, a student who's preparing for exams. He has to organize content, he has to set bookmarks to when he's reading, he has to search his readings, and he has to comment things. So he uses the Good Reader on his mobile device. And the key benefits you can see on the right-hand side, they are all about quick access to the content. The device is always at hand, and the content can be aggregated on a personal device. So there's much to explore when it comes to apps for learning. It's a vast territory. Here are 2 starting points that you may want to look at as you start out exploring this area. Okay, now let's move on to the organizational side. Let's look at some research results here. There's 2 studies that had looked at what kind of content does make sense and is actually made available by organizations. And as you can see, it's not so much full courses that are made available for mobile devices, but rather things like reference material, performance support material, checklists, for example, and short videos, for example, how-to videos, how to do this, how to do that. So these are the kinds of content that have proven useful when it comes to mobile learning. Let's look at 2 cases. A first case is Lufthansa. And here, a first challenge for learning and development is that they have a very diverse target groups. They have cabin personnel, usually not very keen on technology. They have technical services personnel, which are highly affine to technical things and who also have personal notebooks and tablets available to them. There's the cockpit personnel, and there's management people there. And learning and development makes different kinds of contents available for these different target groups. For example, they have developed with a partner a serious game on airline management, which is available for the personal computer and for the tablet. And this is something that, for example, cabin personnel is interested in, or some of its personnel is interested in, and can use this game to gain a sort of more complete understanding of what it takes to really successfully manage an airline. When it comes to technical services, they make short video knowledge nuggets available to these technical personnel. And when it comes to management, they have licensed a service called Skill Pills from a provider in the United Kingdom. Brief look at that. You find the URL here. So Skill Pill makes available a large library of short video resources. Here you can see an example of a video called Your First 30 Days as a Leader. And in 2.5 minutes, this video covers how you move from a previous position into your new leadership position, and how you work on your first 100 days plan. All right, so let's look at a second case, Xerox. Xerox has been reinventing itself as a company, moving from a document company to a company in information services and business process services. And also learning and development at Xerox has been undergoing a big shift. They've been moving from training to learning, with a focus on more individual ownership and responsibility for learning, a focus on the integration of learning with work, and a focus on knowledge sharing for a mobile workforce. Learning and development at Xerox knows that they cannot provide all the content that is needed by the more than 140,000 employees in the various specialized units, but they think they can support knowledge exchange by employees with and across units. And one initiative they pursue in this direction is called Xstream Video. It's about the motto for this initiative is show, share, lead. Show what you know, share with the community, and step forward and take the lead in the area where you're a specialist. Let's briefly look at this. So here you can see two interfaces for this video service. On the left-hand side, you can see the smartphone interface, which is simplified. So there are some things you can do with this, but some things you can't. But you can upload and you can download and consume short videos with that interface. And on the right hand, you see the more full-feature interface for the personal computer and the tablet. And employees at Xerox are encouraged to record experiences, to record statements, to record how-to videos, and to share these with their fellow employees on this platform. Now let's look at the Xerox case in some more detail. Let's do this by looking at this mobile learning development framework. This framework has been developed by Brandon Hall, and I think it's a really useful framework when it comes to having an overall view of what it takes to do mobile learning. There's 6 areas here. You have, starting out on the right, strategy, content, user environment, channels, connectivity, and devices. And this framework distinguishes also the level of development. Is it just starting out, so this would be a 1, or is it a very highly developed environment, very optimized environment? This would be a 4. Now let's look at Xerox, the case of Xerox in some detail according to this framework. Strategy. They they systematically address informal learning and the mobile worker in their activities. I've mentioned the Xstream Video platform, which is an example of this. So this could be rated as very advanced in this area. When it comes to content, they have a focus on user-generated content, short and informal content. As you've seen, the Xstream Video platform is an example of that. But also learning and development provides performance support content optimized for mobile devices. And they have acquired content, a library from Skillsoft about the books 24/7 series, which is optimized for mobile devices. So at the moment, more than 50% of all their e-learning content is already available and ready for mobile devices. When it comes to the user environment, the content is accessible in different versions with different devices. They have taken an effort to really make the LMS and LCMS accessible to mobile devices, not so much for complete courses, but rather for people being able to find out what's there and maybe to consume it later on a different device. And then they have, in terms of devices, they really focus on the iPhone and the iPad, so that's clearly defined focus. But they also make a good effort to support users who have Android devices. Right, so this is the Xerox case, and this brings us to the end of my talk and the challenges ahead. And I think the challenges really can very usefully be laid out along these 6 areas that we just looked at: strategy, content, user environment, and so on and so forth. So strategy, the question here is, what do we want to achieve for which target group or for which audience? And content, what content do we want to generate and how do we want to generate it? User environment, what is the user environment that we envision for our users? The channels, how do we want to integrate different information channels? Connectivity, how do we want to provide safe connectivity everywhere? And devices, what are the devices that we want to support? And I think any organization that really wants to take a serious start on mobile learning should look at these 6 areas and should find answers to these 6 questions that I just pointed out. Right, so this brings me to the end of my talk. I'd like to thank you very much for your attention. You can find my contact details here. You can follow us on the web, on our web page. You can follow our weblog, which you can see on the left-hand side. You can follow us via Twitter, and you can see some of our presentations on slideshare.net. Again, thank you very much for your attention, and I wish you a very good conference. Bye-bye.